Aloha folks, and welcome back to MTB University. Today we're going to be doing a bike check on my brand new Evil Following MB. If you watched my last video, then you heard about how when we were shuttling in Maui, my last bike got run over by the shuttle driver and just completely destroyed. So this here is my replacement bike, so we're going to go over it in detail. All right, now we'll start with some of the basics here. First off, like I mentioned, Evil Following MB. The MB stands for more betterer than the previous version. So in Hawaii, we don't really get a chance to test mini bikes out. There's just like a few big name brands and that's about all you can find. So we just kind of have to look at geo and then hope for the best. So what I did this time around was I actually got online and I looked at the geometry of some of the most fun bikes I've had in the past. That included old school Nolly Endorphin 26-inch wheeled, Santa Cruz Nomad, the aluminum second gen version, so much fun. And then another one that I had was a Santa Cruz Nickel. Those three bikes are some of the most fun bikes I've ridden. Oh, and the Evil Insurgent as well. So one thing I noticed about all of those bikes is the reach was at about 450 millimeters or just shy of that. Now the reach on this thing is 452, so it's right in that range. The stack height, it's only about 10 millimeters off between all those bikes, so relatively close. So just based off of that, I went with the large instead of going with the extra large. And most people online were saying, oh, extra large, because I'm 6'1". But just judging off of the numbers and how much fun I had on those previous bikes, I went with a large. I've had 2 rides on this thing so far as well, and I must say, good choice. This feels just right for me. The shock on this is just the RockShox Super Deluxe. That's the shock that comes standard on this bike. I read a lot of great reviews about it. I'm excited because the previous Following, you couldn't put these piggyback shocks on it, but now you can. So you get a little bit, more supple feel here, and I'm enjoying that so far. Up front, I also stuck with RockShox, and I got the Pike RCT3. I've been using this fork now for probably, 3-4 years. I've had multiple, and I'm really happy with it. It's just a great fork. This is the Boost version, first time I've ever had Boost. And there's so much clearance in the front. It looks like a Bluto fat bike fork. It's hilarious. The travel range for this particular bike is 120 millimeters to 140. So the last time I had this bike, I had a 130 millimeter fork on here. This time around, I went ahead and put on the 140. I wanted something a little beefier. Now what I've done is I have this Works Components angle head set up in here, and I have it set at a degree steeper than normal. Now because of that, that gives me a 65.5 degree head tube angle, which is pretty slack for this bike. Now, does it climb as good as my last Following? No, it doesn't. My last Following had a 130 millimeter fork on it. It had just the regular head tube angle. That bike certainly climbed better. This one wants to come up a little bit more. But, as a rider, you're not just stationary on your bike. You're constantly moving, whether you're going uphill or downhill. So this one, when you're climbing uphill, you get a little bit further, forward on the seat. Yeah, you get down a little bit further, and it keeps the front end of the bike down. So those are all minor things that just a little bit of body adjustment totally can compensate for it. And then when you go downhill, you get to enjoy all the fun. So what we're running up top is the Race Face Nexstar carbon bars. First time with carbon bars. Seem to be great. I have them cut down to 770, which is actually 10 millimeters wider than I normally have them. But I like it so far, so we'll see how it goes. I'm running the Race Face turbine stem at 40 millimeters. I've got a pair of MT7 Miguras on there for brakes. I'm really enjoying these things so far. They have so much modulation, it's incredible. I've been running Saints, and I love Saints. But now that I have these things on here, I understand what modulation really is. Now I'm running just an XTR shifter up in the front. They're pretty inexpensive nowadays, so that's great. One thing I really like is this wolf tooth seat post dropper lever. Oh, it's just so smooth. It just feels so good, and it's designed really well. If you crash and you break it, it's designed to give at this one point and break, but that piece only costs $3. So instead of having to buy a whole new lever, you just have to buy that one little piece. The last thing I have up here is these Ori grips. I love Ori grips. I will never go back to anything else. They're just a little fatter. They're so sticky. I don't get arm pump with them. I love them. First time I've ever bought carbon wheels. So these are the Knox Farlows 29ers. They have a 29 millimeter internal rim width. For me, that's just about right. I've run 35 millimeter internals before in super wide tires, and I didn't like it at all. It was just too much. But 29, 30 millimeter internal rim width for me, for size tires I run, it's fantastic. I normally run about 2.35s. Especially, I use these bikes as for everything, cross country as well as downhill, and that's a good all-around size for me. When you start getting 2.5s on there and you start riding all day long, it's just so big, and I don't really enjoy that. Now what I'm running for wheels up front is, my favorite is the Minion DHF on the front, 2.3. I tried something new this time in the back. I went with an Aggressor. It's supposed to be a faster rolling tire. I have to say that after only 2 rides, I've noticed this thing slipping quite a bit more than when I ran a DHF on the back. So we have a 24-hour race coming up. Probably gonna leave this on for that race, but as soon as the race is done, I'm gonna replace that with a DHF. Not that it's not a good tire, but it definitely doesn't have as much traction as that DHF does. One of the things I really like about this setup that I got is, you know, I talked about these Knox Farlow rims, and I got the DT Swiss spokes here, and then on the back and the front, I put on an Onyx hub. And Onyx hubs have a couple of really great features. One is instant engagement. So as soon as you apply pressure, it engages. There is no looseness whatsoever that you get with a normal hub. That's really great, especially when you're climbing technical bits. The other thing I like is it is a silent hub. It makes no noise whatsoever. So if we get it spinning here, you'll notice there's no clicking, right? The freewheel is not clicking. It's completely silent. And some people don't like that, but I absolutely love it. I love being up on the hill, and it's just, all you can hear is the dirt of your tires and the birds and the trees. I feel like a ninja on the trails, and I must say I love it. People say, oh, it's not as safe, you know, people can't hear you coming. I'm like, but they can hear me saying, on your left, or righter. So you should never be approaching someone blindly anyway, so it doesn't really matter to me if my hub makes noise. Now for drivetrain, I actually mixed it up and went with a whole bunch of different things. So what we're running here is the Raceface Nexstar carbon cranks. First time having carbon cranks. Kind of went all out this time. But so far so good. I'm running the DMR Vault pedals, which I have been running on my last 3 bikes. I love these pedals. You're with a pair of 510s. These things stick so good. I'm running this One-Up Components chain ring here, and I like this one because you can unbolt it here and actually just slip the chain ring off over your crank and put a new one on without having to take your cranks off, which is great. If I'm going to do a race, I can put one on that's bigger or smaller, just depending on what I'm going to do, with relatively little effort. So I like that. I'm also running the One-Up bash guard on the bottom here. You can't even really see it, but it's a great little thing there to have, and I do tend to use it every now and then, so good thing to have on there. I'm also running XTR. I really like the Shimano shifting a lot, and 11 speeds is plenty for me. I actually went with the XT cassette in the back instead of the XTR, because the XTR, I think the max is 40 tooth, and I wanted something out here in Hawaii we have some pretty steep hills, man. And I really wanted something a little bit bigger. I probably could have got away with a 42, but this time I went all the way to the 46. It's pretty massive. And then I paired it with the 32 up front. And yeah, it's like having a granny gear. So we'll see. I might end up going with a 42 in the back or maybe a 32 up front. We'll see how that goes. But I really like the way the Shimano shifts. Real happy with that. Now for Seatpost, this time around I went with something new. I went with the Bike Yoke Revive. Read a bunch of reviews about this thing and know a couple people that have them. And there's a few features that I really like about it. They designed it with the intention of it being easy to service. So what they've done is there's this little Allen right here. And if your seat gets spongy, like they all do eventually, you just put the Allen in there, give it a quarter turn, push it down, let it go, and then you just use your lever to put your seat post back up again. That actually pushes all the air out of the bike post and into the right chamber and gets rid of all that squishiness that you get. I've used it already and it works. It's fantastic. So this is a great post. It comes in at 160 millimeter travel as well instead of 150. So nice bonus. I went with the D80 seat mostly because it was matching, but I have to say that so far this saddle is a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm going to give it a few more rides, and if it remains uncomfortable, I'm going to go ahead and put my Chromag Trailmaster back on there. That's a seat that is just, for me, is super comfortable. I love it. All right, I think the only thing I forgot to mention here is that instead of getting the Race Face BB, I ended up going with the Hope BB instead. I did that because I'd read that this Race Face BB just does not hold up very good in the wet weather, where the Hope is just sealed better. And out here in Hawaii, where, I mean, there's like, I've got bags lined up right here for the hurricane that we almost just had, right? So it's so wet here that you really need stuff that handles real well in the water and the mud. So I went with the Hope this time around. Well, that wraps up our bike check for my new Evo Following MB. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Now, if you've actually ridden an Evo or you've used any of these components, go ahead and put in the comments what you think about them. I would love to hear it. Also, I'd love to just hear about what bike you're riding right now and why you like it or why you don't like it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them. Also, I recommend subscribing if you haven't yet. We're going to be really focusing from now on out on the actual mountain bike skills part of the channel. We've been doing a lot of reviews and a lot of things like that, but we're really going to be focusing now on bike skills and the things that that can help you feel more confident on the trail. So go ahead and subscribe and you'll get alerted to when all those videos start coming out. So other than that, have a fantastic day. Go ride your bike.